The whole mess started with a photograph. A simple, innocuous picture of me and a female classmate, Sophie, walking into the library was all it took. It appeared on the school's online forum, and within hours, the rumor mill had churned it into a scandal. My stepsister, Clara, who had cultivated this bizarre, unspoken public narrative of us being a couple, cornered me in the crowded hallway. In front of everyone, with her voice sharp enough to cut glass, she called me shameless. Her accusation hung in the air, and the whispers of our classmates felt like 1,000 tiny needles against my skin. That night, the tension followed me home. I sat with my mother in the quiet of the living room, the weight of the last 8 years pressing down on me. We had a long, deep conversation, one that was years overdue. I laid out all the pain, the humiliation, and the suffocating feeling of living in Clara's shadow. For the first time, she truly seemed to listen. The very next day, with a sense of quiet resolve, I logged on to the university admissions website and changed my application preferences. My future was my own, and it was time I started acting like it. A few weeks later, at her lavish 18th birthday party, I was cornered again, this time by a circle of her wealthy friends. "Leo," one of them sneered, holding a glass of wine out to me. "If you don't repent properly, do you think you'll have a good time studying abroad with Clara? A little bookworm like you needs her protection." I looked at their mocking faces, then at Clara, who watched from a nearby couch with a smug sense of ownership. I took the wine glass they pushed into my hand, the crystal cool against my trembling fingers. I swallowed the spicy, burning liquid in one go and forced myself to apologize. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "It won't happen again?" My feigned submission seemed to satisfy her. Clara smiled, a lazy, triumphant expression on her face as she leaned back against the plush cushions. "Don't worry," she said, her voice carrying across the room. "We'll make sure you have a good life." What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I was leaving for Cydia in a matter of days. The good life I had meticulously planned for myself didn't include her, not in any chapter. My life in Clara's world began when I was 10 years old. My mother remarried, and we moved into her new husband's house. On the car ride over, my mom rehearsed her warnings like a mantra. "Your stepfather, Richard, is a good man, Leo, but there's a sister. They say her temper isn't the best. Please, just don't provoke her, okay? If she picks on you, you have to let it go. For my sake." I just nodded nervously, my small hands twisting the hem of my worn t-shirt. Standing in front of the impressive European-style double doors of their home, I felt a wave of dizziness. Even though it was nighttime, the extravagant lighting pouring from the grand living room was blinding. I took a deep breath to steady myself and looked up. My eyes met hers. She was standing halfway up a magnificent spiral staircase, looking down at me. Clara, the daughter of Richard and his ex-wife. She was dressed in what I could only assume was expensive loungewear, one hand casually tucked into her pocket. When she saw me, her already stern face tightened into a grimace of disgust. "So dirty," she said, her voice echoing in the cavernous entryway. "Who let you in?" Embarrassment washed over me in a hot wave. I immediately looked down at my own feet, at my dirt-stained cloth shoes and the faded cartoon character on my t-shirt. My mom began to apologize awkwardly to her. Then, still in her wedding dress, she rushed to hand me a pair of house slippers, tossing my old shoes outside the door as if they were contaminated. Clara just stood there on the staircase, a smirk playing on her lips as she watched us. A moment later she sneered and called me a burden. I stood frozen in place, wishing the polished marble floor would swallow me whole. It was my mother's first day in her new home, and this was our welcome. I couldn't imagine how we would ever manage to live here. When Richard finally came over, my mom and I were still standing awkwardly in the foyer, unsure of what to do. Richard had been my mother's first love, separated years ago by their families, and they had found their way back to each other after both of their first marriages ended. Unlike his daughter, he didn't make me feel uncomfortable. He had a refined, gentle air about him. He patted my mom's shoulder softly. "Go change out of the wedding dress," he said, then gestured toward me. "It's late. Take him upstairs to get some rest." He then looked up the staircase. "Clara, you should get to bed too." I wanted to thank him, but the words were stuck in my throat, so I just nodded and followed my mom towards the stairs. The adult-sized slippers were far too big for me, and I had to shuffle my feet to keep them from falling off, trying desperately not to make any more noise. But Clara threw a fit, blocking our way. "He's too dirty," she declared, her voice shrill. "He'll make the whole upstairs smell." The humiliation burned in my cheeks. I was trapped, unable to move forward or back. Richard, who had been on a work call in his study, came out looking annoyed by the commotion. "What's going on? Clara, what are you doing now?" My mom shot me a worried look. I knew the last thing she wanted was a confrontation with her new stepdaughter on their first night. I forced a stiff, unnatural smile onto my face. "It's okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "The couch downstairs looks big and soft. I can just sleep there." Richard refused at first, but Clara was immovable, standing her ground on the stairs and threatening to call her grandparents. In the end, after much argument, I spent my first night in my stepfather's house on the living room sofa. It was a concession to Clara's wishes, the very first of many compromises that would define my life with her. Until I turned 18. Over time, I gradually learned to read the atmosphere of the house. Richard was kind enough, but he was often busy with work, and Clara was relentless in finding new ways to make my life difficult. If we were eating a meal, she refused to sit at the same table as me. If I was quietly studying in my room, she would complain that I was making too much noise. If I stayed up late revising for exams, she would march in and turn off the lights, claiming I was wasting electricity. Everything I did seemed to irritate her, as though my very presence in her home was an offense. My thoughts were pulled back to the present as I watched the black luxury car drive away from the curb. When Richard had transferred me to Clara's school, he had arranged for us to commute together. But she never wanted us to be seen arriving at the same time, and she would often order the driver to pull over and dump me midway. The driver, unable to defy her orders, would just hand me an umbrella with an apologetic look before speeding off. That day, the rain had been relentless. By the time I walked the rest of the way home, I was soaked to the bone. When my mom saw the state I was in, her eyes filled with tears, but she couldn't bring herself to stand up for me. So I had to bear it, bear it. I had heard that phrase so many times growing up. I couldn't change anything, so I did what I was told. I bore it. In a desperate attempt to improve my situation, I tried to please Clara. I did whatever I thought might make her happy. After learning that she loved a particular complex French onion soup, I spent hours watching cooking tutorials online, teaching myself how to make it perfectly. After several scalded hands and many failed attempts, I finally managed to serve her a dish that met her standards. I made sure to deliver it to her, hot and fresh, at the same time every day. Yet her attitude toward me didn't change. If anything, it got worse. During gatherings with her childhood friends, she would insist that I join them. They would rig their party games so that I would be forced to down glass after glass of hard liquor as a punishment. When I was nearly unconscious, slumped over the table, she would graciously allow me to leave. One afternoon, on the way home from school, she had her friends leave me behind again. This time it was in a dim, deserted alleyway. A group of rough-looking men surrounded me, their shadows long and menacing in the fading light. I was terrified. Then, Clara strolled up, appearing as if out of nowhere. She walked leisurely, her chin raised in amusement. "Surprised?" she asked, a cruel smile on her face. "Beg me, and I'll make them let you go." In that instant, it dawned on me. This was just another one of her pranks. I knew exactly what she wanted, for me to submit to her, to be completely at her mercy. As terrified as I was, nothing else mattered in that moment. I swallowed my anger and pride. Panic-stricken, I ran over and clung to her leg. "Please!" I choked out. "I'm begging you, Clara!" Her vanity was completely satisfied. She looked down at me, her expression triumphant, and slowly said, "All right." Only then did the menacing men step aside and disappear back into the shadows. I collapsed onto the grimy pavement, gasping for air. For months after that, the incident replayed in my mind, a recurring nightmare I couldn't escape. When I saw Clara during the day, I could only follow her orders like a mindless zombie. After delivering that soup to her every single day for 2 straight months, I finally reached my breaking point. But then, one day, she suddenly stopped me as I was about to leave her room. "Leo," she said mockingly, "stop bringing that stuff. Even the pigs are sick of it." My hands shook, and a wave of despair washed over me. Did she really not care at all? But then, she coolly added, "Bring me something else instead." My heart leaped. It wasn't praise, but it was a message. I understood. From then on, while she continued to be standoffish and demanding, it seemed she no longer despised me with the same intensity. At home, I would bring her tea without being asked. At her school volleyball matches, I would be in the stands, cheering for her. I shouted myself hoarse, more nervous than if I were the one competing. Clara's girlfriends would laugh and tease her. "Clara, your devoted follower is back." Clara would chuckle too, but she took the bottle of water I handed her. With a smirk, she remarked, "Ah, my personal fan." Then she ordered, "Leo, go get those limited edition shoes for me. I want to swap them out for the next game." I rushed home to get them, suppressing the tears of humiliation that stung my eyes. I couldn't stand living like this for a moment longer. When I mentioned that I was about to graduate from middle school and wanted to return to my old hometown to live with my grandparents, my mother reacted with unexpected force. "Leo, have you lost your mind?" My usually gentle mom was genuinely upset, glaring at me with an intensity I had never seen before. "Do you even know what I've done for your sake? Do you know the lengths I've gone to just so you could study here?" The school Clara attended was one of the top private institutions in the city, and securing a spot was incredibly difficult. My mom had to pull strings with Richard and even get Clara's grudging approval for me to be admitted. My mom's tear-filled eyes pierced my heart. "I'm so disappointed in you," she said. My hands clenched into fists at my sides, my face pale. "But Mom, it's just too painful for me to stay here. Besides, I already talked to Richard about it." Just then, Richard's displeased voice came from behind me. "Leo, since your mother is here, we should talk about this properly. If you're having issues here, you need to speak up. Going back to the countryside, what does that make us look like? As if we're mistreating you." After Richard left in a huff, I saw that my mom's face was soaked with tears. She clung to my hand, her voice breaking as she begged me. "Leo, can you please just bear with it a little longer? Don't ruin this hard-won relationship of mine. Please!" My mother's tearful pleas were like a heavy hammer pounding on my heart. Slowly, my resolve crumbled. I took out the school transfer form I had filled out, and in front of her, tore it in half. I nodded woodenly, tears finally slipping down my own cheeks. "Okay, Mom," I whispered. "I promise." After I returned to school, Clara continued to make me do things for her every day. I had no choice but to resume my role as her sidekick. She seemed to be in a good mood more often, and her gaze upon me seemed to soften, becoming more and more kindly. Soon, however, rumors began to circulate around school that we were romantically involved. This made Clara furious. Our relationship, if it could be called that, crashed to an all-time low. She would scorn me to others who brought it up. "Why would I ever like that fool?" she'd say with a laugh. And she was right. Ever since we were kids, I had been at her beck and call, trying my best to please her. Wasn't I just a fool? I buried the dull ache that her words caused, pretending to ignore the sting deep in my chest as I slipped away from the corner where I'd overheard her. Yet, for some strange reason, Clara never publicly clarified the rumors or put a stop to them. I was just too drained to try and figure out what the princess was thinking. With final exams approaching, I lugged a pile of books to the library, feeling anxious and exhausted. Recently, Clara's unpredictable moods had me so stressed that I was falling behind in my studies. On the way there, a classmate named Sophie rushed up to me, asking if I could grab a key from the science lab for her. Though she asked politely, there was an undeniable air of authority about her. I recognized the brand of her coat. Clara always had her clothes custom-ordered from the same designer. This upscale school was filled with people from wealthy, influential families, people I couldn't afford to cross. So I silently fetched the key for her. As a return favor, she helped me with some difficult math problems later that day. After that, we became familiar with each other, often meeting at the library to study. One day, as Sophie and I entered the library together, someone snapped a photo. Within an hour, the school forum blew up. The main topic of discussion was that Clara was being cheated on. Clara, who valued her reputation and public image above all else, was livid. She found me between classes, and in front of a growing crowd of students lashed out, calling me shameless. The murmurs and strange looks from everyone around us felt like sharp arrows piercing my heart. My face flushed with heat, and I didn't know what to say. If I denied our relationship, I would probably be locked out of the house tonight. I ended up looking guiltily at Sophie. "I'm sorry you got dragged into this," I mumbled, feeling terrible that her immaculate reputation was now being tarnished because of me. "You don't need to apologize. It's not your fault," she said softly, her voice as gentle as a spring breeze. I looked at her, grateful for her kindness. Then she stepped forward, coldly addressing Clara. "Leo is not your boyfriend," she stated, her voice clear and firm. "He has nothing to do with you, so there's no reason for you to be so angry." Her single sentence hit the crowd like a tidal wave. Everyone around us gasped, staring at Sophie in shock. Could it be? Was she Leo's real girlfriend? Clara stood there, stunned into silence. The curious and judging looks from the crowd made a vein on her forehead pop. She shot me a glaring, venomous look and spat out a few choice words before storming off. I turned pale, with only one thought in my mind. It's over. No one had ever embarrassed the princess like that before. The rest of the afternoon crawled by in a haze. I sat in class feeling like I was in a nightmare that would never end. Just when it was almost time for the school day to end, a woman suddenly barged into our classroom. She was impeccably dressed like a proper lady, but she began yelling at me, completely ignoring all sense of decorum. You're the one in the photos bothering my daughter!" She tossed a stack of printed papers onto my desk. The people around me gasped, and I winced in pain. The sharp edge of the photo paper had sliced into my finger. My index finger was bleeding, an ugly red line against my skin. but I didn't have time to tend to it. The woman continued her tirade, pointing an accusatory finger at me. "You little nobody acting like a lapdog at your age. Let me tell you, not just any Tom, Dick, or Harry gets to enter our house." My face burned with shame, and a sense of dread crept over me. I looked down, and sure enough, it was the photo of me and Sophie at the library from the online forum. The woman standing in front of me was Sophie's mother. I could feel the bad vibes and the excited chatter from my classmates all around me. My face turned pale as I clenched the fabric of my trousers. "Mrs. DuPont," I began, my voice trembling. "Maybe there's a misunderstanding. My relationship with Sophie isn't what you think." But hearing me speak her name was like lighting a fuse. She raised her hand to slap me, stopped only by Sophie, who had rushed over. "You're still trying to deny it? Fine, I'll have my daughter transfer schools. Mom, it's not like that. I'll explain later." Sophie gave me an apologetic smile and hurriedly pulled her fuming mother away. The moment they left, the room exploded with gossip. Bit by bit, their words chipped away at what little dignity I had left. Even the few people I considered my friends glanced at me differently. I felt like I had been drained of all my energy and my head buzzed, not understanding how things had spiraled so completely out of control. Suddenly, someone shouted for everyone to check the school forum. A wave of panic engulfed me, and I struggled to breathe. My fingers trembled as I clicked the link on my phone. And there it was, my worst fears confirmed. The top post was a full video of Sophie's mother berating and interrogating me just moments earlier. The forum was buzzing like a hornet's nest. Now, the whole school was in an uproar. I watched as the color drained from my own face in the reflection of the dark screen. That night, I dragged myself home, only to find all the lights on in the living room. A suffocating pressure loomed over the entire house. The household staff went about their tasks with their heads down, avoiding eye contact. Even Richard, who was usually busy with work and rarely home at this hour, was sitting on the couch, a stern expression on his face. "Leo, we're really disappointed in you this time," he said, his voice low and grave. "Did you know that Clara is also being criticized because of you?" My mom hastily tried to calm him down while also scolding me. "Yes, Leo, you've embarrassed the entire family this time. You need to reflect on your actions." After the reprimands, I held back my tears and headed towards my room, step by heavy step. All the way up the stairs, I thought about Clara, who had been conspicuously silent during the entire exchange. I felt a wave of profound unease. Opening my bedroom door, the heavy, dark atmosphere inside startled me. I let out a gasp and backed into the wall. Clara was standing there, a fierce silhouette against the faint moonlight. The room was pitch black, with the curtains drawn and the lights off. I couldn't see her expression, only hear her heavy, angry breathing. "Well, you've gotten gutsy, haven't you?" she whispered, her voice dangerously low. "Do you like Sophie?" Before I could answer, she lunged forward and grabbed my collar. Her face was inches from mine, her breath mingling with my own. My heart raced uncontrollably. I awkwardly tried to speak, my mind racing to find the right words to say. In the next moment, she stood on her toes and bit my lip hard. It was a punishing, possessive act. My heart pounded wildly in my chest. I don't know how long it lasted, but Clara finally let go when I was nearly breathless. She lightly slapped my face with her cool hand, her voice filled with an undeniable, commanding force. "Leo, after high school, I'm going abroad for college. You're coming with me." With that, she turned and left, leaving me stunned and trembling in the darkness. The intense feeling of suffocation nearly overwhelmed me. A sense of pure desperation washed over me. Is my life destined to be bound to hers forever? An ever stronger thought surfaced in my mind, one that was hard to shake. I gritted my teeth and resolved to talk to my mom. Really talk to her this time. I poured out years of frustration and hardship, everything I had been holding inside. Then I tentatively brought up my future. "Mom," I began, "I don't want to go study abroad with her." Besides, I hesitated, but then my gaze firmed with resolve. My teachers always say I'm good at science and math, and that I could contribute to national research. I want to apply to the top research school in Cydia, not go abroad. My mom looked at me, her eyes teary, and held my hand tightly. "But Leo, I can see that Clara really cares about you, and Richard has always approved of you too, even if he doesn't say it. If you stay, you could be the future head of this family." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had to interrupt her. "Mom, have you really been happy all these years? When Richard comes home and habitually hands his coat to you to hang up, or when he waits for you to serve him soup at meals? Are you truly happy?" Seeing my mom still hesitating, I bit my lip and blurted out the one threat I had left. "Mom, if you don't agree, I'm going to switch guardianship. I'd rather go stay with my drunken dad." That finally did it. My mom let out a long, shuddering sigh and whispered, "My son has really grown up." She didn't say much more after that. "You've suffered so much over the years, my Leo. From now on, just do whatever you want to do." We exchanged a smile, a real one, finally untangling years of unspoken heartache. After that night, every time I saw Clara at school, I couldn't help but think of that kiss in my dark room. But while I was awkward and unsettled, Clara acted completely cool, as if nothing had happened. In fact, she started bossing me around even more, pretty much dragging me along with her everywhere she went. Over time, her girlfriends started joking again. "Clara's got her study buddy back." A twinge of bitterness hit me, but I didn't say anything. Because of the talk about studying abroad together, wherever I went, these girls teased me, calling me Clara's study attendant. Then came the day of Clara's coming-of-age ceremony, which was held after our college entrance exams were over. Early in the morning, she dragged me out for a makeover and put me in an expensive tailored suit. I was confused, but my heart couldn't stop racing with a foolish hope. Was she going to confess to me? I waited nervously for the evening to arrive, but at the grand ceremony, in front of all the guests, Clara just smirked at me. "Leo, remember that thing with the school forum? Weren't you going to apologize to me? You can start now." My mind buzzed, and my lips trembled. When did I ever say I would apologize to her? But my brain quickly pieced it together. A girl like her, a princess, wasn't used to being stared at with pity and amusement like she was that day. The embarrassment she had felt had to be avenged, and I was the target. She had dressed me up in these fancy clothes only to knock me down in front of everyone. My fingers whitened as I clenched my fists, the humiliation and the mocking laughter from the crowd choking me. Some of Clara's friends chimed in, teasing, "Leo, if you don't apologize deeply, how's your study abroad going to be, huh?" All right, an apology. I closed my eyes. It's fine. I can endure this. After tonight, I would be on a plane to Cydia, and all of this would be over. I grabbed the wine glass that was pushed towards me and downed the entire thing in one go. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice clear and even. "It won't happen again." Clara finally seemed pleased, reclining on the couch with a satisfied air. "Don't worry," she said grandly. "You'll have a good life." I raised my head, my expression calm, and said softly, "If there's nothing else, I'm going to head out now." As I spoke, Clara actually looked surprised. She stared at me, her eyes searching my face. I turned away without another glance and left the party. After packing the last of my things into my suitcase, I let out a long breath, feeling so much lighter. As I was leaving my room, familiar footsteps stopped me in the hallway. I quickly hid behind the door. It was Clara. She eyed me suspiciously. "Leo, what are you up to?" I silently exhaled in relief, glad that I had kept the room dim so she couldn't see my face clearly. She couldn't see that the room behind me was already empty. But then, she pushed the door open and saw the packed suitcase. Her expression changed quickly, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. Then she laughed, as if realizing something. "Leo, you're really eager, aren't you? We've still got another day or two and you've already packed everything." I forced a smile, relieved that she thought I was just packing for our supposed study trip abroad. After a few moments of light chatting, Clara went back to her party. As she left, she shook her head with a smile. Even if I was acting a little odd, she figured I was still completely devoted to her. The flight was fast. Once the plane landed in Cydia, I finally exhaled a breath I felt like I had been holding for 18 years. It felt free and amazing. I texted my mom to let her know I had arrived safely. She replied quickly, telling me to live well and not to worry. As for Clara, my mom had managed to keep her calm by telling her that I was off spending a few days with some old friends for a farewell trip. She'd be back just in time for them to leave together. Clara wouldn't be suspicious yet. Taking another deep breath of the new, clean air, I gave my first real, genuine smile in years. Carrying no baggage from my past, I lifted my suitcase and began walking, step by step, towards my dream university. 2 days passed with no sign of me, and Clara was starting to get anxious. The thought of studying abroad, of spending 4 whole years together, made her tingle with excitement. Acting on a sudden impulse, Clara packed her own things, ready for their journey. By tomorrow night, they would be on their way. She tossed some clothes, personal items, and, most importantly, a large bag of snacks into her suitcase, all things she knew I liked. She was all set for the long flight. Thinking of me gladly sharing the snacks with her, she slept soundly that night. But in the morning, she kept checking the clock, growing more and more impatient. She kept asking her aunt, who was staying with them, "Wasn't Leo visiting friends? Why isn't he back yet?" Her face suddenly changed. "Oh no, Leo's so clumsy. What if something happened?" In a hurry, Clara rushed towards the door. "I'll go find him." "There's no need," a calm voice said from behind her. It was her aunt, her tone just as calm as mine had been at the coming-of-age party. Instinctively, Clara wanted to avoid hearing what she had to say. She didn't turn back. She just sped up her pace. "This Leo," she thought, "still such a playful guy. When I catch him this time, I've got to teach him a good lesson." The aunt behind her sighed and said, "Clara, Leo's not going with you anymore." After her aunt explained everything, Clara couldn't help but stumble back a few steps. So she was that much of a burden to me all along. I had always felt suffocated living in their home. As the reality of it sank in, the butler started reminding her, again and again, that her flight was soon. Clara gritted her teeth and headed to the airport alone. "Leo," she thought, "no matter where you are, I won't give up on you." Meeting Sophie in my new school was truly unexpected. My first instinct was to avoid her, but she forced a bitter smile and blocked my path. "Leo," she said, "I came to this school because of you. You can't hide from me for all 4 years of college, can you?" I frowned. Even though Sophie was kind by nature, her mother and her family background made it difficult for me to get close to her. She seemed to notice my hesitation and quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, Leo. I never got the chance to properly apologize for what happened before, but I promise you, my mom won't be as impulsive as she used to be. I guarantee those situations won't ever happen again." A profound bitterness welled up in her eyes. "So you can feel safe getting close to me." But I just shook my head. These rich girls, whoever they were, I didn't want to be involved with them anymore. After my rejection, Sophie started pursuing me more fiercely and boldly. She was like an indomitable force of nature. The more she failed, the more determined she became. Every single morning, before the dorms even officially opened, she was there, waiting outside with a gift in her hands. In every one of my classes, without surprise, she was my seatmate. As a popular and charming rich girl, both boys and girls alike would bend to her will. She naturally and effortlessly managed to snag the seat next to me every time. Every afternoon, she would bring over carefully made little pastries. Over time, even my roommates couldn't help but sigh. "Sophie is truly a devoted person," one of them said. My other roommates all nodded in agreement, their eyes starry. "Yeah, she definitely is. And she's a top-notch beauty. Leo, you should really give her a shot." I followed their gaze and looked down from our dorm window. A slender woman in a white, long dress stood below, exuding a chilly elegance. She seemed to sense us watching, hurriedly freeing a hand that was holding a bouquet of flowers and waving up at me. The blurry view from the third floor couldn't hide her otherworldly beauty. Yet, in the next moment, I just closed the window indifferently, ignoring my roommate's well-intentioned advice. I focused on the textbook at my desk again. They all gave me disappointed looks, probably thinking I was unfeeling and stubborn. The flowers I received each day, I would pass on to random passers-by on the street. I concentrated on my lectures, ignoring the constant flirting from the seat beside me. The afternoon tea pastries I received, I shared with my roommates and classmates. But they didn't know. Escaping from Clara to this peaceful, focused life was a dream I had held for 8 years. Now that I had finally achieved it, why would I waste my time and energy on romantic entanglements? I leaned over my desk, lowering my head even more. After graduation, I was determined to get into a national research unit and contribute to the country. After 2 months of this peaceful routine, Sophie must have realized that her gentle, simmering tactic wasn't working. Who knows where she learned it from? But one evening, she drove her shiniest convertible onto the campus plaza, its roof covered with 999 red roses. She confessed her love in front of a giant heart made of lit candles. My mind buzzed, and I almost blacked out from the sheer shock of it. Before I could even formulate a refusal, a rushing shadow behind me startled me. It was Clara. Having arranged everything she needed to abroad, she had rushed over as soon as she could. Upon seeing her beloved, seemingly being targeted by her arch-rival, she lost all control. Every slap she unleashed landed mercilessly on Sophie's body and face. "I've been gone for 3 months, and look at you now. I always knew you didn't have good intentions." Sophie was stunned for a moment. Then she quickly fought back. The two of them were soon wrestling each other on the ground. I scrambled to get between them, trying to separate them. Finally, seeing them both being taken away by campus security, I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Just don't let this turn into a murder case and affect my application to the research unit. But as soon as my classes ended that afternoon, Clara dragged me out. "Leo, you've gotten bolder, haven't you?" I blinked frantically, confused by her accusation. I didn't say a word. She sighed, and her tone suddenly softened. "Leo, do you have any idea how I've been living without you around?" I widened my eyes in shock. I couldn't believe it. The young lady, the princess, had for the first time lowered her head to me. She sneered in self-mockery. "I never realized before how important you are to me. Those few months abroad, I suffered from insomnia night after night. I missed you so much, Leo," she said, her arms looping around my neck as she gazed at me with deep, raw emotion. I hurriedly pried her hands off, stepping back a big step. "Clara, if you've got nothing else to say, you should just leave." A trace of loneliness flashed through her eyes. She gave a bitter smile. So, the real Leo dislikes me that much. Can't you at least take me out for a meal? Afraid of my refusal, she quickly added, After all, I've come a long way, right? I looked at her with complicated feelings. She was wearing a simple black cocktail dress, and it looked like she had rushed over right after wrapping up some formal event abroad. Her cheeks were slightly red, with faint finger marks from her fight with Sophie. I sighed. After all, we had known each other for so many years. Treating her to a simple meal wasn't that much trouble. I took her to a quiet noodle shop just outside the school campus. I ordered a simple chicken noodle dish for myself, then handed her the menu. She flipped through it for a long time, and finally, with a complex mix of emotions, she ordered a bowl of the French onion soup. The chicken noodles at this place were delicious, with tender meat and a rich broth. When my bowl was served, I dug in heartily. Clara, however, only took a single sip of her soup and then stopped. "Leo," she said quietly, "the taste here is far worse than yours." My fingers twitched, a phantom pain recalling the burns and blisters from years ago when I was trying to perfect that very recipe. "I've been craving it. When you're free, could you make it for me, please?" she asked, licking her lips and watching me expectantly. I put down my chopsticks and calmly said, "I'll send the recipe and the detailed steps to your housekeeper. If you want to eat it, just let her make it for you." Clara didn't say anything, but I saw the profound disappointment in her eyes. Not long after I got back to my dorm room, she called me down again. She even threatened that if I didn't come down, she would announce our entire history on the campus loudspeaker. Sure enough, from my window I saw her proudly waving a megaphone, a classic Clara move. When I got downstairs, she stuffed a couple of big bags of snacks into my hands. "I've got plenty more ready. If you need anything, I'll bring more around next time," she said. I looked down and saw that the packaging was covered in English words. I got it. She had brought these foreign goodies and uncommon snacks all the way from abroad for me. But seeing her determined look, I felt troubled. I just wanted to focus on my studies, and I was never a big fan of snacks. Even if I shared them with my roommates, it would still take ages to finish them all. "Got it," I said, turning to leave. Suddenly, I felt a warm touch on my back. "Leo, I know I messed up in the past," she said, pressing her body close to mine. Her warmth was almost overwhelming, and I could hear her heart beating loud and clear against my back. "Leo, can we start over?" Her voice, though muffled, was still soothingly familiar. "No," I replied flatly. "I'm heading upstairs now, Clara." After a long pause, she loosened her grip reluctantly. Her eyes, however, held a new determination I had never seen before. "Leo, I'm serious. You'll only be happy with me." But happiness? I wasn't sure I bought that. Maybe she should sort herself out first. Behind me came an angry shout. "Clara, what's your deal? He was mine first. You should respect who came first." Clara got all riled up, turning with fury, her fists clenching. "Sophie, when Leo and I were together, you were probably still playing in the mud." The two women were deadlocked, the atmosphere tense and heavy. The bags in my hands were heavy and my arms were aching. I remembered the unfinished lab report waiting for me on my desk. I had no time for their drama. "I'm off." The moment I started to walk away, they both turned in a panic. "Leo!" I glanced at Sophie, who had a white bandage across her face with a few visible stitches. Noticing my gaze, she quickly sputtered, "Leo, it's all her fault. The doctor says it won't scar. My looks are safe." She shoved some pastries into my hands, clinging to my arm. "Wait for me, Leo." For the next few days, I didn't see Sophie. I figured she must be at home, healing. Instead, Clara was in my face non-stop. Flowers, gifts, every single day. Whatever I slightly hinted at needing, she would have it delivered to me in no time. Clara, now treating me with such devoted attention, reminded me so much of how I used to treat her. I realized she was working hard, trying to win me over. For a rich, proud girl like her, that couldn't have been easy. I might have been shocked at first, but I gradually got used to it. Yet, beyond the initial surprise, I felt nothing else. The younger Leo might have been moved by this, but not the 18-year-old me. After some time, Sophie's injuries fully healed. She dropped her elegant, ladylike manners and started pursuing me again with raw enthusiasm and sincerity. Even my typically serious lab supervisor joked, "Leo, your charm goes beyond academics. Our Leo is quite the lady magnet in life, too." Following his gaze, I saw the two women standing downstairs below the lab window, one holding a massive bouquet of flowers, the other with boxes of pastries in both hands. I glanced around and saw my fellow students looking on eagerly, thoroughly enjoying the drama. I was tired of it. It was seriously impacting my studies and my life. I marched downstairs, determined to end this once and for all. Both women rushed over as I approached. "Clara, come on! I was here first!" "Leo, don't listen to her. Did you come down for me?" I took a deep breath. Given my complex family situation, I decided it was better to deal with the other one first. I grabbed Sophie by the arm and left, ignoring Clara's scowl behind me. In the quiet of a nearby tea house, Sophie was elated, her face eager with hope. "Leo, does this mean you accept me?" "Oh no, I didn't buy flowers today. Hang on, let me set up a proper proposal scene. Last time didn't count." She was quick to get to her feet, buzzing with excitement. I stopped her. Speaking calmly, I said, "Sophie, that's not why I'm here." She froze, her expression steadily darkening as the reality of the situation dawned on her. I continued, "Sophie, I thought we were friends, but now you're seriously disrupting my life. I don't want to see you again." Sophie couldn't believe it. She gripped my sleeve in desperation. "Leo, you can't be so heartless!" Her eyes filled with tears. "Back in high school, I pursued you as a way to rebel against my family's arranged marriage plans. I was just testing their reaction. I never meant to hurt you that much. I messed up, and I'm so sorry. But Leo, now I've realized that I truly love you." And just like that, the truth came out. Thinking back on the public humiliation I had suffered, the confrontation with her mother, the vicious online rumors, it had all stemmed from her selfish actions. My chest tightened with a surge of cold anger. My grip on my teacup involuntarily tightened. Any guilt I had felt for her completely vanished. I yanked my sleeve free from her grasp and accidentally knocked over a cup of coffee. The black liquid spilled across the table, soaking everything in its path. But she didn't even flinch. Her eyes pleaded as she looked at me. "Leo, I can finally make my own decisions now. Can you give me another chance, please?" As if she just remembered something, she quickly added, "I promise what happened last time won't ever happen again." But I stood up without hesitation, raising an eyebrow sarcastically, a twinge of disgust rising inside me. The truth is, it wasn't anyone else holding us back this whole time. You used me as a ploy to test your parents, which shows that the bias wasn't just theirs, but yours as well. I watched as her eyes dimmed, inch by inch. Finally, I said, "Sophie, I won't forgive you. Our friendship ends here." Since that day, I haven't seen Sophie on campus. Clara seemed to catch on too. Knowing about the tension between me and Sophie, she kept her distance. I felt an immense sense of relief and threw myself completely into my lab work. The days were busy and pleasant, all the way until the end of the year. During finals week, I scored well and ranked first in my major. Even my normally reserved mentor complimented me, saying I was the most hardworking and dedicated student he had ever seen. I smiled with genuine satisfaction, packed my things, and got ready to head home for the holidays. At the New Year's Eve dinner, I saw Clara again after a long time. She seemed to have grown taller and more composed. With everyone from the family present at the table, I made my announcement. "Richard, Mom, thank you for everything. I've talked it over with my mom, and I've decided that I won't be coming home for the holidays as often anymore." Clara's face turned red with emotion, her newfound composure slipping. "Leo, is it because of me? If you don't want to see me, I'll leave right now. But please, don't make decisions like this because of me." I calmly interrupted her, explaining that I would be pursuing a research career, and that I had a good chance of joining a confidential national team due to my excellent grades. Clara was speechless for a moment. Then she whispered, "Will I not be able to see you again?" I ignored her question. Richard sighed, his hair looking grayer at the temples. "Leo, go for it. Your mom has already spoken to me about it." After the new year, as I was preparing to return to the lab, Clara asked to meet me. The spot she chose was a small restaurant we used to frequent in high school. I thought about it and agreed to go. Clara was already there, waiting in our usual booth. She looked happy to see me and handed over a carefully prepared gift. "Leo, after you leave this time, do I need to file a special report with the authorities just to see you?" I took a deep breath, wanting to say that there was no need for us to meet at all, but she interrupted me with a reminiscent smile. "Leo, remember how I always envied the other girls with their roses in high school? Now I don't have to envy them anymore." She sighed. "We used to be inseparable, but now we're miles apart." Her face showed a hint of profound sadness. She reached for my hand across the table. "It's okay, Leo. Once we both graduate, we can be together again." While she sweetly envisioned our future, I calmly withdrew my hand from her grasp. "That was your happy memory, not mine," I said, my voice flat. I felt suffocated during that time. After I spoke, Clara's face cracked with pain. "Leo, can you—" "No," I responded, standing up to leave without looking back at her. I had already wasted 18 years of my youth on this person. Moving forward, I would not fall back into that trap. After graduation, I was accepted into the secret research team I had been aiming for. I thrived in my field, dedicating myself to my work. One day, after a long session at the lab, I was walking out of the building when I spotted a familiar face from afar. A colleague, noticing my gaze, explained, "That's the new CEO of the Harrison Group. She's also one of our project's biggest investors." Stunning, right? It was Clara. I turned my gaze away without a flicker of emotion, changing the subject. Clara, however, spotted me and called out, her voice filled with astonishment. "Leo, how are you here?" Years had passed. She seemed worn out, the weight of running a huge company likely taking its toll. I stayed silent, but as her gaze met mine, 2 of my security officers stepped forward. "Ma'am," one of them said sternly, "please stay away from our researcher." "Researcher?" Clara looked at me in disbelief. Because of the confidential nature of my work, she hadn't known. The officers, standing firm like mountains, blocked her path. She stepped back, her face pale. "Leo, you're a researcher now?" "Yes," I said. And not only that, but I also had a dedicated security detail. Too many vital national tasks were on my shoulders, ensuring my protection was taken very seriously. But I wasn't interested in explaining any of that to her. I gave her one last cold look and turned to leave. Then, her raspy voice stopped me. "Leo, promise me you'll live well." I paused. "I will," I replied without turning around, looking up at the bright, sunny sky. I felt warm and free. I had finally shed the shackles that had weighed me down for so many years, and I was shining in a field that I loved. Later on, I heard through the grapevine that Clara had fallen into a deep depression. She lay bedridden, clutching old photos of me, growing weaker and more distant every day. Richard worried about her endlessly, trying everything to help her. But what does any of that have to do with me? I shut down my equipment for the day and began my preparations for the next experiment with the new conduit.